In the 17th century, Florentine experimenters set out to map the laws of thermodynamics. They had the tools and the rigorous methods, but their research immediately hit a wall. They were missing the right words. They used a single word, roughly translating to degree of heat, to describe both temperature and the total amount of thermal energy an object contained. By cramming two distinct physical properties into one Mongrel concept, they generated scientific paradoxes but stalled early physics. Today, modern cognitive science is making that exact same error with its most heavily researched subject. Philosopher Ned Block identified that our entire approach to the human mind is tangled in a linguistic trap. We are using a poorly defined, catch-all word to describe the brain, and it is actively preventing us from understanding how it actually works. The word is consciousness. To see how this breaks the scientific method, look at a bizarre neurological condition called blind sight. Patients with specific damage to their visual cortex develop blind spots in their field of vision. If you flash a light in that area, they report seeing absolutely nothing. But if you force those same patients to guess the shape of the object in their blind spot, they get it right. If you ask them to grab a glass of water they claim they cannot see, their hands will perfectly mimic the shape of the glass as they reach for it. Researchers noted that the patients never reached for the water on their own initiative. They saw an organism failing to rationally initiate a physical action and concluded that the biological purpose of consciousness must be to guide rational behavior. Block flagged this widely accepted conclusion as a logical fallacy. The researchers had been tricked by their own vocabulary. To fix the error, we have to perform a conceptual dissection. We need to take the word consciousness and split it into two completely distinct biological phenomena. First is phenomenal consciousness, or P-consciousness. This is the raw, subjective experience of being alive. It is the what it is like to feel a sharp pain, taste an apple, or see the color red. Second is access consciousness, or A-consciousness. This is the brain's internal information processing system. It takes data from your senses and makes it available for reasoning, speech, and physical action. Phenomenal consciousness is the feeling of the machine. Access consciousness is the gears of the machine. In healthy humans, these two systems run in parallel, which makes them look like a single entity. To prove they are separate, we have to find the edge cases where they come apart. The blind sight patient is a perfect example of access without phenomenal experience. Their brain has the data required to guess the shape of the glass, meaning the access gears are turning, but their internal experience of the visual field is total darkness. They lack phenomenal consciousness. Block uses a thought experiment about a pneumatic drill to show the exact reverse. Imagine you are deep in conversation at a loud party. Suddenly, you notice the harsh noise of a pneumatic drill outside the window. The raw, abrasive sound was hitting your ears the entire time. Your phenomenal consciousness was experiencing it. But because you were focused on the conversation, your brain wasn't using that data for reasoning or action. You had no access consciousness of the drill until the moment you paid attention to it. Because a person can experience one without the other, they cannot be the exact same biological system. Let's take those two definitions back to the researchers studying the blind sight patient and the glass of water. The researchers watched the patient fail to pick up the glass. They assumed this failure occurred because the patient lacked the phenomenal experience of seeing the water. Block points out a flaw in that logic. The patient's brain damage results in a severe degradation of access consciousness, crippling their ability to rationally use information. This reveals the fallacy. The researchers identified the obvious biological job of the access system, guiding physical action, and illegally assigned it to the phenomenal system. If you use a single word to describe two entirely different mechanisms, you guarantee that you will assign the wrong biological function to the wrong system. Block's attempt to redefine the field's core vocabulary drew intense fire from the cognitive science community. The primary counterargument from his peers was statistical. Because phenomenal and access consciousness almost always happen simultaneously in healthy humans, they argued the evolutionary mechanisms must be identical. Block's response relies on basic physics. On the surface of the Earth, weight and mass are perfectly correlated. But a physicist who decides they are the exact same property will completely fail to understand the mechanics of gravity. We have to pry correlated phenomena apart to see how complex systems actually operate. So where does this conceptual split leave the science of the mind today? This cognitive flowchart provides a functional roadmap for access consciousness. Because it operates through data routing, we can track it like computer architecture. But phenomenal consciousness, why it actually feels like something to exist, remains a mystery, known in philosophy as the explanatory gap. We don't have the tools to cross that gap yet. But scientific breakthroughs don't always start with new data. Often they start by cleaning up the words we use to think.